All right, look at them. Aren't they beautiful? They're fantastic, and they're all here. Exciting. So let's get started and just dive in. As the only other person to take the reins of this twice, besides Mr. Lucas, what was the difference between your first day working on Rise of Skywalker and your first day working on Force Awakens? What happened in the middle? Were you more confident? Were you just as scared? What happened?
Well, first of all, thank you, Ava, for being here. We're very lucky to have you.
Thrilled to be here.
I think the difference is that the pressures shifted. We didn't know at the beginning of Force Awakens exactly what it would look like to have Daisy Ridley and Adam Driver and Oscar Isaac and John Boyega. And, what would that cast be like? And we had to figure it out and discover it. The first day of Rise of Skywalker, we sort of knew some of those things. We knew those things were working. What we didn't know was everything else. And this was wrapping up, not one film, not 3 films, but 9. And so the responsibility was significant. And the movie, this is a pretty big picture. The scale of the movie is pretty enormous. And we knew that none of that would matter, none of it would work if you didn't care deeply and track with the people. So the most important thing, the people, we were good with. We knew we had this incredible cast who I think have gone above and beyond anyone's expectations and are truly spectacular in the film.
Just to continue to ask you though, this is doesn't have a comic book to follow the story. There's no blueprint for this. This is coming out of you and Chris's head. And what you had talked about was, wrapping up 9 films. That's an awesome responsibility. So at the moment that you accept the invitation to do it, and it's the next day and you're home, and you're thinking, oh wow, I gotta end this thing. Just personally, as a longtime fan of it, what was your personal process to get there? Did ideas start to come immediately? Were you quiet for a while? Did you meditate?
Because we had worked on Force Awakens, Larry Kasdan and I and Michelle Rejwan and Kathy, producers, we had talked about quite a few things back in the day. So it was a bit of sort of picking up where we had left off. And the fact is that what Rian Johnson had done in Last Jedi, had set up some things that were sort of wonderful for this story. One of the things being that the cast was separated. The characters weren't together for the entire movie, essentially. So this was the first time that the group got to be together. Chris and I got together. We knew immediately we wanted to, tell a story of a group adventure. There were some very specific things that we were both drawn to immediately. And we just started doing the thing that you do, which is you say, what do you desperately want to see? What feels right?
Why JJ?
Why JJ?
Why this guy?
The one thing I know about Star Wars and the one thing I know about these kind of tentpole movies is this unique combination of needing dramatic storytelling, gravitas, and a great sense of humor. And I think that there's few filmmakers that really embody both of those things and also have the capability to really manage something this huge. And JJ was my first choice. So that was an easy one.
Absolutely, yes, yes. Chris, when the initial call came in to co-write this screenplay, how long did the kid in you do somersaults before the writer in you started to hyperventilate? Because I don't even know how you approach something like this.
I think I was on East 12th Street in Manhattan when I spoke to JJ. JJ had been calling and leaving messages, and I was in a screening. And I didn't have JJ's cell phone number in my cell phone, so it was sort of a random 310 number. And I thought, why is this random person in Los Angeles calling me? Right. And finally, I listened to the message, and I sort of hyperventilated a little, and I called back. And he said, hey, do you want to write episode 9 with me?
Wow.
Didn't say the word Star or Wars, just said
right.
episode 9. So for a good 8 minutes, I let myself sort of leap into the air, and then we realized, oh my God, we have to land this vehicle somehow. Yeah. We have to land the biggest Star Destroyer in the world on this, on the head of a needle. And then we got to work. I live in New York, but I came out to LA, and JJ and I just started at Bad Robot. There's a room with these whiteboards, with these blank whiteboards, and we just started writing in dry erase marker on whiteboards, and then eventually the boards became a Word document. that was 10 pages and then 50 pages and then 121 pages, and then that became the script.
I'm going to jump into some of our newbies before we go to the OGs, as we call it in Compton, where I'm from. So let's start with Kerri Russell. Kerri Russell, who the hell are you? And what are you doing here? You play Zori Bliss. And I just have to tell you, love her. I mean, love her. She's hot. She's badass. From the moment you see her, I just wanted to see more of her. Can you tell us a little bit about her? How did you approach her? And did the anonymity of being masked as an actor add something new for you to play with?
Definitely. No, JJ called me or emailed me and said, "Do you want to be in Star Wars?" And I was like, "Yeah." And but then he told me about the idea about the mask, and yeah, personally, I love the mask. I mean, that's my fantasy dream sequence, that I can see everyone in this super tough version of myself costume, and no one can see me. I mean, that's my dream. It's a real power play in a way, because no one can really see what you're thinking, but you can see everyone else. But yeah, it was amazing, and I've known JJ for so long, and I just feel like we have a shorthand, and we speak the same language in a way, and I just feel like JJ got to finish a piece of history in a way by getting to do this, and he did such a great job.
He really did. Jana, Naomi, welcome. This is a big thing to step into. You're, for any actor with tons of experience and a lot behind them, it's a lot to step into. Let alone someone who's newer to the scene.
Yeah.
So, did you just come in and say, you know what, I'm gonna walk on with just swagger. I'm gonna be fearless, or did you just, just kind of how did you prepare? Did you have a defining moment where you knew how you were gonna approach this?
I felt like it was really through the physicality. Like I felt like Jana's strength was in her body. Like, she's a very grounded character. So when I got to training, that's when I started to be like, okay,
I got this.
right, okay, like being able to do pull-ups and horse riding, and then I guess with that came like confidence that I hadn't previously experienced, and then working with JJ and figuring out like what the balance was between, strength of a character, but also a vulnerable side. Someone with a heart. We don't always have to just be like strong and fierce, but you can also, sometimes vulnerability is strength at the same time. So kind of finding that balance was really interesting. And I feel like we found it by the end. I mean, literally, and also, like, because we watched it yesterday, I'm not being funny, like, I left it, like, my heart was beating so hard, and it's the most visually beautiful thing I've ever seen. It makes you feel like a child, and there was an element of feeling like a child on set that, I mean, it's like the whole cast allowed that to happen, and JJ was the one who allowed us to be here, so yeah, very grateful.
Yes, well done. Kelly Marie Tran, you're back. You're back. What was the camaraderie like on set, getting the gang back together? Like I said, as you're watching it, it's just so heart expanding to see everyone in the same scenes together. What was it like actually doing it?
It was really wonderful. I think that from the last film, there seems to be such a, bond between everyone. And then also the new guys. Like, everyone just feels, it sounds so cheesy and so cliche, and it is, but it truly feels like everyone's a family, and we're all just there to have fun and be part of something that's so much bigger than us as individuals. And that's a really cool thing to share with people, so.
It felt like these scenes denoted community, right, in the scenes within them, but they also were very closely connected to Kerri. And so I wanted you to chat a little bit about, the feeling on the set around doing that work in her absence.
Yeah. I think for myself, I can only speak for myself, there is sort of this idea that, JJ has talked about ending 9 films, and Kerri was such a big part of all of that. So I think for me personally, there was a lot of wanting to honor this thing and do right by this thing.
Jonas, Chewbacca, why? Love it. Why has he endured? Why do we love him? What are the qualities that endear him to us? You've thought about him more than the rest of us. What is it?
I mean, for that, we have to go back to 1977 or whatever, and when George found Peter Mayhew to play this character that was supposed to be, nobody knew what it was going to be, and it's that thing where you don't know going into these things how it's gonna look, and I think Chewbacca's endurance has to do with the fact that Peter's unique physicality that I sort of inherited and I try to bring on screen. It created this character that moves not quite like a human. It's very unique, the way Chewbacca appears on screen, and the way he's. So that's what created the memorability of that character, and what people, even if they haven't seen Star Wars, they might know what Chewbacca is, and that's what I'm a custodian of. And that's what I've taken. And when Peter passed this last year, I was heartbroken. But I like to think that in this film, I attempted to do him justice. And while working with this incredible cast, I'm really happy that we're part of something that's so much bigger than ourselves, but that we still get to play and have fun in. And for that, I'm forever grateful to be a part of this.
Anthony Daniels, the great. Can we give him a round of applause? Immense respect to you, sir. You've been in all of the Star Wars episodes. This is your final walk as C-3PO. It's been a joy to watch you through every film. So thank you for what you've given. It's
Thank
really
you for
fantastic.
saying that, and thanks to everybody who has kind of been fond of 3PO over the years. Some of you will be there.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
More than fond. We love him. Can you just sum up your journey as an actor? You've done something in these films that hasn't been duplicated, that no one else has done. You've touched every one of them. You've worked across all of the worlds, all of the planets, all of the ideas and the stories. I don't know how you'd start to summarize it, but maybe you can try.
Well, I've just realized in the last few months something that I hadn't ever got before. Because I've been in all of them and all the spin-offs and stuff, I am so close to it. And I said it's rather like having your nose up against the planet. You can't see how big that planet is. And gradually now, I'm beginning to get a perspective on it. And that comes from talking to fans, to people who say what Star Wars has meant to them over the years. It's meant something completely different to me. It's a job. It's kind of fun. It's kind of awkward sometimes. It's, as we all know, it's not a smooth ride. But finally, I'm getting to see it almost from the other perspective, and that's the perspective of the audience who've been there all this time. And I'm really glad to have survived all this long enough to get this perspective.
You've got a unique perspective that no one else has.
Right.
Thank you. Richard E. Grant. Your Twitter last night was epic. Your tweet was epic. You were on cloud nine after seeing this film. I'd just like you to talk a little bit about your reaction to the film for those who did not see. Can you get back to that moment and share with us what you felt?
I thought that Disney would sue me for
You were very emotional.
because I think that you're not supposed to say anything about it, but I didn't tweet any spoilers about it at all. But having seen it first when I was a theatre student when I was 20 years old, and before any of the younger cast were even born, it's an extraordinarily emotional thing to see just the passing of time that goes through all of these movies. And it felt really like a combination of everything that I've read in the Bible, Greek mythology, The Wizard of Oz, all, rolled into one in this extraordinary summation of the whole story that delivers an emotional wallop at the end that I was totally unprepared for, and I was wiped out, and I barely slept. So thank you very much for having me.
Mr. Williams, so your career is much bigger than movies for many people, and it is for me. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about Lando and how you approached it as an actor, coming back to a part so many years later. Did you look at the previous films? Did you just, use the script that was in front of you? What was your process as an actor to get back to him?
I have a lot of admiration for this young man called Monsieur J.J. Abrams.
Yes.
And it was pretty much, I like, when worked with George, that was an opportunity to work with somebody who was really extraordinary. And here again, I have an opportunity to work with somebody who's really extraordinary. Actually, we worked together when he was doing Lost. I played myself playing a killer, which I thought was a very interesting idea. And I thought, this guy is really crazy. But fabulously crazy. But anyway, this has been a great pleasure for me, coming back to do Lando. I didn't think that it would happen. I just wrote it off, and I said, well, I did what I had to do, and that was it. But when I got the call from JJ, and then when we met, I just sat there and I just chuckled, because I thought it was just a wonderful gift.
Yeah.
So I'm a very, very happy human being right now.
One of my favorite actors is up on this dais, and I feel like he can do anything. His name is Oscar Isaac. And Poe feels different in this to me. He's a bit, I think he was always supposed to be a bit of a swashbuckler, but he's like dropped into the swashbuckling thing in this. Like, it's all, you're dripping swashbuckling.
Pants.
Is it the pants?
And the knee-high boots, really. I think it's really Michael Kaplan that really brought the swashbuckling to this one,
What am I seeing that feels different in him from the previous?
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of always been a bit of a wild card energy and figuring out where he fits in the story and what story is being told. And I think with this one, JJ and I talked a bit. I remember JJ being excited about kind of dirtying up the squeaky flyboy image that he's had for a bit and just revealing a bit more of his personality. And I think that really comes out because I've been taken away from my little box in space, and I get to join my friends this time, and you really get to see the interaction with the three and the hope that I think that he, in particular, brings in this one. There's a kind of a relentless, almost aggressive optimism that he has, and how that is tested, and how he tries to be there for his friends, tries to push them along even when it seems quite hopeless. And then I think also the way that we approached shooting a lot of these scenes, there was a looseness to it. There was things shot in big, beautiful, choreographed takes that are just astounding to watch, where you'll follow one character walking through this maze of an amazing planet with all these stormtroopers and aliens, and you realize it's all this one amazing continuous take with then us talking over each other. So it was that kind of trust that JJ kind of that allowed, I think, a real spark of vitality.
You and John, I mean, John is like walking charisma, like charisma on legs. Like if you look up charisma in the dictionary, it's John with legs. The two of, I have a different dictionary, special one. But the two of you have, it might be the greatest bromance in.
It's juicy.
It's hot, it's good. But this connection, was it something that you all had to work at? Is it something that is contrived and you really don't like each other? Like how does this clicking that we see on camera? John, can you speak a little bit to the relationship?
When Oscar first came in, there was some other actor that I read with, and the chemistry was blatant, and there was a natural vibe between me and Oscar. I don't even know why. I just liked the guy. And I just
walked into my dressing room, and it was so sweet. He's like, you want to run the scene before? I was like, yeah. And then we just got in the dressing room, butt to butt, and ran the scene together.
Yeah.
And then from then on, we've been in that position ever since.
I just think, it is what it is. It's just a good chemistry, and I think I felt most comfortable when I was while auditioning doing the scenes where Poe was involved anyway, because I've always liked the guys in the film. I just like the boys. I love that. I love that element, and I was glad that we could find that in our relationship.
Yeah, it really comes through. It's beautiful. It's really fun to watch. Anything that you learned from this part that you were surprised that you learned now that, we're at the final episode from when you first tackled it to now? A big lesson that he gave you when he talks to you in his head. And I'm not talking about JJ, I'm talking about Finn.
Oh, Finn.
When Finn talks to you in his head, not when JJ talks to you in your head. What has he taught you?
I just like loyalty. Loyalty is something that I find very, very important in my personal life. I think it's super important to be loyal and to understand the way in which people want to be loved and communicated with. It's like, proactive love is something that Finn does on a day-to-day basis, Throughout the film, a lot of the times, Rey is going off on this, really hard journey as a character blessed with so much power, and Finn tries to support her in that journey, and sometimes it's hard. And in my real life, if I've tried to get in contact with you 3-4 times and you're going off, I'm going to leave you alone. Finn's going to come for you and try and make it work regardless.
So Adam, you, am I technically in the proper Star Wars lore if I don't just call him Kylo Ren? He's also Ben Solo, right? Like if I say Ben Solo, is that also accurate? Or no? Can he not be Ben Solo, or is he rejected Ben Solo and I should not use those words? Wow, he's really thinking about it.
Yes and no.
Okay, well, let me ask you. My question is, in your performance of Kylo Ren, did you allow Ben Solo and who he was before to influence the way that you played Kylo? Or once you entered into Kylo Ren, were you in a completely different space? Did you bring his legacy and his heritage into the performance with you in this piece?
In this one?
Yes.
I think maybe subconsciously. I don't think it's when people are actively trying to deny a certain part of their lives, I think they can do it pretty successfully. And then it just turns into what is happening around them that brings it out in them. So I think maybe, but it's not. I don't think it's something that we actively talked about playing it. But it definitely is the thought to have.
And since you...
But that's, again, I think that's a testament to the writing that
Yeah.
from the beginning it was never someone... from the beginning, it being called Force Awakens was intentional in that it was the Force Awakening for both sides, the light and the dark. And JJ, even in those first meetings, talking about someone who is unformed and not a, quintessential, in control, of his faculties, knows where he fits in which again is helpful for me as an actor because we are figuring out the same thing. It totally echoes what's going on in the story, especially in the first one, new cast figuring out where you fit, in a legacy that spans, so much time. The end. So that was helpful, but I guess in similar in that. I guess it's a subconscious thought in playing it. I guess it's also a subconscious thought as me as an actor thinking about it.
So Daisy, would you say the biggest demands were more the physicality or the depth of some of the scenes emotionally? And which one?
It's a good question
because
with the physical stuff, you train and train and train, and then the adrenaline helps you on the day to do the thing. But obviously the stamina needs to be there for you to continue to do the thing. But I would say I was more tired emotionally because there really wasn't a day where I was like, no, it's just a quick scene. Coming from the last one, which was quite heavy, even the joyous scenes I found very strange to do. And then obviously there's a lot of other stuff that's going on. And it's also tricky because understanding what JJ was asking of me, I'd be like, I know what you're asking, I just can't quite get there yet. So that was probably the most tricky thing, and sustaining that emotion. And there's more of a, I would say, a singular intention that was tiring. Because as well, even in the emotional scenes, there's a physical containment that is tiring. So really, I've not answered the question, and both things were hard.
But what was it about the joyous scenes that created more of an obstacle for you?
it's just so strange because I've gone from, a film with a lot of being like, please be my friend, Luke. And he's like, go away. And I'm like, no, please. And then, very emotional stuff with Adam. So coming back was so great, but it would be so easy to just flow into it that then you're like, am I acting? Like, is this what is required? Because I'm basically bouncing off of Oscar and John and Jonas and Anthony in such a joyous way that you just feel like you're having a chat with your pals.
Right.
So it's not like difficult in like a way, but it's strange wondering how that general vibe is going to translate into a scene.
So for George, it was really important to him that these films mean something. That they aren't just, popcorn films, that there's some universal truth to them, that something is being conveyed, that this is soul food. It's supposed to stick to your ribs. And he wanted to say something through the ones that he worked on. You're the only director that's done it more than once besides him. So in this final piece, I always hate getting this question, but I'm going to give it to you anyway, my friend. What does this mean, and what do you want to say with it?
That's a terrific question. I like to think that when you're working on something, especially something, and I say something like this as if these kind of things come along all the time, and they never do. And I'm still grateful to that call from Kathy. The truth is that there's the movie that you're presenting to the world, and then there's the thing that you're doing, not necessarily secretly, but meaningfully. We live in a crazy world. We live in a crazy time. And Star Wars for me was about hope. And it was about community. It was about the underdog. And it was about bringing people together and seeing all oddballs represented, and the most unlikely friends and the most unlikely places, and the family that you make is really your family, And so to tell a story that is, of course, a giant spectacle and a sort of, like you say, the blockbuster wrapping. But the thing that mattered to me most, more than all the spectacular, unbelievable, I would argue, best work ILM has ever done, all the departments going beyond expectations, the thing that matters, I would say, most and only in the film is really the people who are sitting here, and what you're watching, and the eyes of the characters, and the heart of the characters. So for me, rather than give away sort of themes that Chris and I talked about doing, from the beginning, and what our specifics are, I will say that it really is about hope, and it's about coming back to a sense of possibility, about unity, and if Star Wars can't do that for us, I don't know what can.
And now it's your turn. Time to ask questions. Here we go. Ma'am in the front. Yes, you. Here's a mic coming for you.
Hi everyone, Kira Lynn with Hollywood First Look Features. This message is for JJ and Chris. Being able to sit down and write a screenplay of this magnitude, I want to know what it was like when you guys realized that it was finished. Like you were done with the story. Like, I can only imagine what that would be like.
Is it finished?
Is it? Ha-ha.
Well, there was a moment in the process when JJ and I were agonizing over something in the third act, and we were in a room with Michelle Rejwan and Kathy and JJ and I, and we couldn't seem to get it, and we went outside the room, and Rick Carter, the production designer, sort of legendary production designer, said, "I think the reason you and JJ can't write this scene is because you don't want Star Wars to end." And I looked at JJ, and we knew he was right, and then we had to go and write it. And then, of course, the movie is remade, on the set, and remade in editing, and remade in scoring, and remade in all kinds of ways. So we kept rediscovering the story. But I have to say, it was I think both of us mourned the moment when we typed the characters' names for the last time. I mean, the moment of joy you have when you type, Lando, and type some words underneath Lando is something that is indescribable. But also the moment of sadness and longing when you type it for the last time is memorable.
What Chris said. I will only add that when I called Chris about asking if he would be willing to do this, and you screamed because you were such a Star Wars fan, which I had been told, I was such a fan of Chris's, had read a number of his screenplays, and Argo, I thought, was just so beautifully written. And I needed to have someone writing this with me who would, from the very beginning, remind me of how much Star Wars meant, who hadn't been inside of it before the way I had. And I said to Chris at the very beginning, if you do this, you're going to be with me the whole time to the very end. And Chris, being the humble man that he is, made some self-deprecating joke about how I won't want him around, whatever. And we were together throughout production, throughout post, in the trenches with Michelle, with Kathy, kicking every tire, shaking every tree, doing everything we could to make sure that we were telling the best possible story we could. And I cannot tell you how grateful I am for this gentleman's partnership on this movie.
Yeah.
Just questions for JJ. Can you tell me about the process of integrating Carrie Fisher into the film and how you worked towards the story, the footage you had found from The Force Awakens, and what that process is like, even emotionally, for you and everyone involved?
Yes, I like everyone here who knew her, loved Carrie. And I knew her for a long time, not very well, but I knew her for a while before Force Awakens. And, obviously, as we've discussed, the idea of continuing the story without Leia was an impossibility. And there was no way we were going to do a digital Leia. There was no way we were, of course, ever recast it. But we couldn't do it without her. And when we went back to look at the scenes that we hadn't used in Force Awakens, what we realized is we had an opportunity. And we could use that footage, use the lines that she was saying, use literally the lighting. That was amazing. Okay, watch this. The lighting. That was creepy. Hi, Carrie.
Yeah.
Hi, Carrie. That's so Carrie, by the way, to do that.
Yep.
Really weird. In any event, we knew that we had an opportunity to use the footage to create scenes that Leia would be in. And of course, had Carrie been around, and it's still impossible for me to believe that she isn't, because we've been editing with her for about a year, and she's been very much alive with us in every scene. And it ended up being, if we had Carrie around, would we have done some different things here and there? Of course we would have. But we had an opportunity to have Carrie in the movie. And working with all the actors, including Billie Lourd, her daughter, who's in scenes with her, we were able to, I think, do something that Carrie herself, I'd like to think, would be happy with. She's great in the movie, of course, and it's still emotional and moving to think of her and how sad we all are that she's not sitting here with us today.
The question was, what do you want your legacy to be?
I think in itself to be part of something, like a lot of people in cinema are talking about representation and change and aren't doing it. So I think in itself being part of a team of people that look a little different, that are from different places, like in whatever form that is, gender, race, whatever it is, I think that in itself is a legacy to be proud of. Yeah, I think, and like JJ was saying, this is a film of hope. And I think we are reflective of the world at large. There are a lot of people up against magnificent forces that are fighting the good fight, and and the characters aren't real, but what they're doing is perilous in cinema. So to be able to portray, even a tiny part of that in this crazy world is very special.
Hi, congratulations on all the work that you guys have put in. My question is for John Boyega. I remember way back when you did Attack the Block and you had your first junket with like a press conference table. Like, how does it feel to have a global audience like love you for this character and Finn and for this production, coming from where you came from as early on in your independent movies? Like, how do you carry yourself now with this global respect and love from the world?
I don't know. I just I think I'm not the only one in it, so it's cool to be able to share the load. I guess I've been on this journey with Daisy really more than anyone else, just in terms of circumstance and understanding of culture. Well, pretty much there's a 100% understanding of our background and where we're from. And then while we were auditioning, obviously we were, you know, I had more money than Daisy when we were auditioning. I think you had like £17.55 in your account. And it was in minus too, so she was definitely going over the transaction limit. And we were just able to relate on that, even that kind of level where it's, you know, most of the time actors have this kind of like, you know, kind of mystery about the personal things. We stripped that bare, and I think that having this connection more than anything, like if I feel any type of way, or if I experience something that's weird, or if I'm at a store and I'm like, oh, I just saw something, I always just message Daisy, because I just know that that's somebody that would 100%, you know, relate. And I guess this way has been my way of experiencing, you know, the whole thing. But it's definitely also been a huge life change for all of us, and that in itself is exciting.
Thank you, JJ. Thank you, everyone here. Thank you, Kathleen, for being the shepherd of this beautiful story, and thank you all for being here. Can't wait till you see it. You're gonna love it. Thank you.